Welcome to Heartland Darkland. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Cassie. Hey, Deckard.
Hey, Descartes. Hearts. Yep, Cassie. But you were like really fast with that. You were
Well,
on
that's because
point.
that last time I
I
forgot
know.
about it completely. So
I know. I'm impressed. I was couldn't even spit it out that fast. So look at you go. You're like, let's just do this. But
let's do it.
yeah, I keep finding myself leaning forward because we got new headsets and microphones, guys. And not that, well, I guess if you watch our YouTube, you can see this or our TikToks or whatever. But out of habit, I'm like leaning forward to talking to the mic, and I don't even have to do that anymore.
Yeah,
So
which is why we decided to try out gamer headsets. So
yeah, yeah. My daughter saw this. She's like, "What's that for?" All excited, and I was like, "You didn't have a gaming set, so I don't know why you thought this was for you or what you were planning to do with it, but no." So
no,
that is
no,
ours.
100%, 100%. We just slowly try new things and see what we can do, and we go from there.
Yeah. So there's that. But yeah. So here we are approaching spooky season and well, approaching the end of it technically, but I guess
Yeah.
spooky season is year round for some of us people that just
Yes,
love the
spooky
thrill.
season is always in our hearts.
Yeah, 100%. So,
Which,
um,
just a little
yeah,
heads up, we won't have an episode on the 30th. Life happened and it's just not going to happen.
yeah,
Um, so that week will be off. Just a heads up for you.
yeah. So this is your Halloween episode, we'll just say. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all kind of spooky, I guess, in their own way because of the fact of just the content that we talk about.
Right.
But yeah. So, that being said, because it is spooky season, I feel like we always have to try to come up like I need an excuse to tell you why I picked this case and why it's not relevant to the Heartland, but because it is Halloween-ish time, and Cassie did her fun one last week, on the Deliverance. That was what the movie was,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
still have it on my list. Has anyone watched that since the episode? Have you watched it yet, Cassie?
I have not had a chance to watch it yet. But real quick, kind of before we go into yours, I did
Yeah.
get to go see the Ghost
Oh, yeah.
Brothers of Darkland County. That was a ton of fun. The Benson Theater is really cute. I got to see Bo in person, and then so that was on a Friday night, and then on Sunday I went to see Lizzie. And I got to meet Dana. The Shelter Belt's a cute little area. It's a neat little area. The women had phenomenal voices, and it was nice meeting Dana in person, and so that was a lot of fun. I was excited I got to do that, but unfortunately, yeah, I've been so busy that I still have not had a chance to watch Deliverance. One of these days, it'll
Yeah.
happen.
It's not going anywhere till Netflix takes it off, I guess, but,
And it's a
it's
Netflix original,
yeah,
I think, so it's
they're
not
not
going
gonna
anywhere.
yeah, it won't go. Yeah, I have not watched that one yet, but I was like, kind of just in the spirit of the scary movie. So yes, I will preface with the fact that this is not a Heartland case, and I promise we do try to really focus on those. However, when I was looking at Halloween cases, like things that happened around Halloween in the Midwest, we pretty much have covered those, like the majority of them anyway. And so, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to kind of do what I want because it's our podcast. So
Exactly.
we will do what we want. And that's what we're doing today. So um, I'll kind of start with the question. Do you like scary movies? If you can
I
see where this is
do,
going.
yes.
Okay. Cassie, what's your favorite scary movie while we're on the topic?
Oh my goodness. I kind of answered this in that post. It's so hard for me to decide, but like I love the intentionally cheesy horror movies, like the ones that aren't making fun of themselves, that are making fun of themselves, like Happy Death Day to You and Ready or Not. Like I
Those are
love
fun.
those.
Oh, yeah.
But I do still love I want to feel creeped out. I still to this day cannot get over The Others with Nicole Kidman.
I
I
can't even
don't
really remember that one that well. I know I've seen it, but it's pretty old, isn't it?
it is,
Okay.
because it's one where she and her kids are living in this house and it's kind of haunted, like her husband's off at war, like it's like 1800s, early 1900s or whatever, and there's like a twist to it and stuff, and like that's always stuck with me. Like I like those like atmospheric creepy, like the Paranormal Activity, the I'll watch any horror movie, like
Oh, yeah.
Smile, I liked that one, except for the ending. I was just kind of,
Yeah.
but I
Maybe
don't
they'll
know
redeem
if,
it
yeah,
with
it's
the new
hard for
one.
me to, yeah, it's hard for me to really just pick one.
I know. It is hard, and when you like those kind of movies, it's like, well, you can have a lot of favorites, and so
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like, yeah, a good variety. It kind of depends on my mood and what I'm in the mood for, you
Exactly.
know? Like
It's
some are
like someone being
scarier
like,
than others and
yeah,
unsettling, but
yeah. It's like when someone asks what your favorite book is, I was like, well, in what genre? It
yeah,
depends on my mood.
yeah,
Like, I don't know.
totally. I know. It depends. And I mean, like, I know I've mentioned before, mine is definitely like the Scream franchise. I don't know. It's just nostalgic for me. It was probably like the real first like horror movie I watched because I remember not being allowed to watch it because that came out in 1996. So I
Yeah.
was like 10 and I was definitely not allowed to watch that at 10
Mhm.
years old. Um, but once I did watch it, I was kind of like, okay, I like love this. And it's just what a slasher film is, you know, like that's the
Exactly.
definition of a slasher film. So for those of you that don't know, the Scream movie, so it was directed by Wes Craven. So I think he's kind of like the king of horror films. He
Yeah.
does all the things. And so that name is pretty well known, I want to say, at least to our generation. But um, it was actually written by Kevin Williamson, and he actually wrote the other Scream films as well. As well as like I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I mean I like those. They're all just slasher. I mean they're
Yeah.
gory, but like not as gory as some now,
Like
like the
today.
Saw and stuff. Like Saw,
Yeah.
that's just like gross. That's not scary. That's just gross.
Yeah, I can't handle the Saw movies. Oh my God,
No.
Final Destination.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I love those. Oh, that's a classic, that first movie. I
Yes.
remember Devin Sawa.
Oh my God, he was the hot thing back
Yeah.
in the day.
Oh, he absolutely was. He was in Casper. I just watched Casper
Oh my
again the other
God,
day, and I was just
yes.
like, oh, so much nostalgia. See, we
Mhm.
could just do a whole episode on our reviews on like scary
Movies,
movies,
yeah.
but they were pretty good back in the day. And I want to say we had good ones, but yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So, he's just kind of a cinematic genius, I think, Kevin, because I just love everything he does. So, also, those of you that don't know about Scream, that pretty much starred Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette. Those were some of the bigger names of the movie. So, as of right now, there's 6 of them out, and it says that in 2026, the 7th one will be released.
Oh, jeez.
Will it be as good as the original? No, but will I watch
No.
it? Yes, yes, I will. So,
I don't think I saw the 2
the last
newest
ones.
ones.
It
Yeah.
has, Jenna Ortega
Yeah.
is in it, and she did a good job, but, like, Neve Campbell didn't return for the last one, but
Mm.
then I read a thing that said that she will return to the next one. I don't know.
Oh.
Like, I feel like after so many of them, like, just stop making them. But it's kinda like the Halloween franchise as well, so it's like, yeah,
Yeah, like, move on.
yeah, move
Find a
on.
new one.
Yeah, like, we'll still watch them. Well, the people who are, like, avid fans will, but,
Yeah.
like, they're probably not that great. So anyways, okay, so for those of you too that are not familiar with Scream, maybe that's not your jam. The way so IMDb's description of the original film describes it as a year after the murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a masked killer who targets her and her friends by using scary movies as part of a deadly game. So, little rundown background there for you. And Scream, like we said, slasher film. It has that little bit, like you see, it has the good, like the thrill of the jump scares.
Yeah.
But it's a good balance between gore and kind of just like dark comedy. You know,
Yeah.
like they take kind of like we try to do when it's like a very serious situation, but like you deal with it in a humorous way because
Yeah.
it, you know. So that's kind of the Scream movies if you have not seen them or you don't know. Um, they are kinda gory though, I mean, but I've seen worse. I'm sure you've seen worse, especially
Yeah.
like we said, now they're way worse these days. So, but I still just love them, and that's the infamous, you know, villain Ghostface. He's from
Yes.
Scream.
Which
Um
if you're on Mask Talk, that is the mask that is used quite often
oh,
for those. I'm gonna have to send you
I don't
one
even
'cause
know
I
what
don't
that
think you
is.
know. Yep, I'm gonna have to send you one.
Knew it, you knew.
I know. That's because you
Yeah,
don't read the smut I read,
I
and
know,
so
it's fine. It's one of the smuts that you read, and I was
That's
like,
true.
"Oh,
That's
wow."
true.
I touched base with you on it,
Yep.
so we'll have to do
This is
yeah.
true.
Yeah, so send that info on, Cassie, I'm
I will.
interested.
I will.
So, yeah, I mean, the ghost face, and, like, and now, I don't know, like, I feel like it's just as prevalent now as it was back in 1996 when it came out, you know,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's still everywhere. You could still find the costume. At Spirit Halloween, they had, like, a giant size, like, 8-foot one that you know, it I don't know, it does something, it talks, it whatever.
Okay.
I don't know. I was kind of like, this is badass, but it was like $400, so that's not
Oh,
happening.
yeah.
But yeah, so Ghostface is the long kind of skeletal mask with the long open mouth, the
It kinda
long.
reminds me of, that painting, The Scream or whatever, you know?
Oh, yeah, where it kind of
Like
narrows in, like,
yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does. And it is creepy. And I think the fact that, like, you know, the killers always wear the long, like, black hooded cape and stuff, which is kind of funny because I'm like, how could you really run and like jump in that? Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not the most realistic thing, but okay,
No,
so I
it's
see.
not.
So that being said, I was trying to find something for Halloween. And because we've covered all the things kind of around here, I was like, just for fun, we still stick to the Heartland, but I like to think of spooky season as its own special thing because it is. So that's when I was like, well, Cassie did one kind of based on, a horror movie that was based on real events. So of course I Googled that, got a ton of different options, mostly like exorcisms and that kind of thing. And I was like, I don't really want to go that route. Like,
There's a lot
okay,
also, like, the horror villain is based off of, like, Ed Gein, and it's like,
yeah,
that is such I mean, he's already so
it's a
well
stretch.
known,
Yeah,
and it
totally. And
is
there's
such
so
a
many.
stretch. Yeah.
There's a few, and so I was like, "You know what? I wanna do something based on, like, a slasher." I'm a slasher movie gal, like, that's my jam, so we're gonna do something like that. So, originally, I was like, "I wanna do" well, okay, the movie The Strangers, it says, based on true events. That's a bunch
I
of
mean,
BS, like, it's
bullshit,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think they just say that so people are scared, but, like, that movie did
Yeah.
scare the
That's
shit
like
out of me.
Fargo.
Yeah, and it's like, I think the reason The Strangers was so scary was because they were just completely chose at random in this movie.
Mhm.
Um, I looked up to see the true events it was, supposedly, based off of, and it was like they said it resembled the Manson murders, like, okay, that's a giant stretch.
Yeah.
And also, I guess the writer of the film, he said that there was a bunch of burglaries in his neighborhood when he was, like, a kid, and he did say that someone had knocked on his door one night asking if someone was there that with the name of someone who didn't live there. And then he found out that that same person was the one responsible for all the burglaries. So, like, okay, that's creepy, but like,
Yeah.
it's not enough for a whole episode. So that brought me back to Scream, which is my original favorite. And I know we talked about this last week a little bit, how you saw that
Mhm.
it is based off, I mean, true story, but not the way you'll think. So okay, so most aspects of Scream are fictional. I mean, such as the whole infamous line of the "Do you like scary movies? What's your favorite scary movie?" Drew
Yeah.
Barrymore being brutally murdered within the first few minutes of the film. So this movie was actually inspired by this real case, and it caught Kevin Williamson's eye, and in turn, it kind of led him to write the script for it. So how this came about was Kevin was living in LA at the time. He was trying to make it as an actor, wasn't very successful. Um, and while he was trying to pursue that avenue, he was just taking on odd jobs to make money and a starving artist. And so he was actually house sitting in this very upscale neighborhood there in LA. He was there for a few days in this giant, huge house all alone. One night, he was actually watching a Barbara Walters special that was covering the Gainesville murders that were going on in Florida. And at the time, that was like rocking that community to the core. He said that it immediately freaked him out, and he was imagining what would happen if a killer had that same knife and gutted his victims, quote, like a fish, as Ghostface goes on to say later in the Scream films.
Mhm.
So he said he was watching this and he was getting super spooked out, and he just described it as scared out of his mind because he said he, was watching this and then he heard a noise upstairs. So he went to search the house and he called a friend of his because he was so like just freaked out. He had said during an interview with CNN back in 1998 that he had went to bed that night so spooked that he was having nightmares, and he woke up at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and he started writing the opening scene of Scream. So I thought that was very interesting, and I think that's so true. Like I even when I'm by myself now, I'm like, "What was that noise?" And especially if you
Right.
do watch something, and I think the reason too, it's like, that was a real this case is real, so, like, I could see why he was freaked out watching something, but it's kind of crazy how it took this wild turn, but we'll talk about that kind of more too, because this case is pretty, wild. So, these murders in Gainesville, Florida, were going on at the time that this the script was written for Scream. So, Mr. Danny Rolling was born in 1954. He actually grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and he had a rough upbringing. He was physically abused by his father. His father was actually a police officer, so that's even shittier. But
Mhm.
um, his father constantly was telling him that he was not wanted, just verbally abusive and physically abusive. I think he also was physically abusive to his mom. There wasn't a lot of information about his mom other than that. So, as he got older, Danny was arrested multiple times over a span of years for robberies that took place in Georgia and in Louisiana. And he actually, besides the robbery, he was also arrested for spying on a woman who was undressing. So,
Oh, Peeping Tom. Okay.
yep, that's always kind
Which
of how some of
tends
these
to
start.
escalate. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, he struggled socially. He had a really hard time just holding down a job. Of course, that all leads to that. So, like we said, it always starts small, but then this all escalated to a point that he actually tried to kill his dad in 1990. Um, However, his dad did survive the 2 gunshot wounds to his head,
Oh,
but
shit.
he lost an eye and an ear. So, okay, once again, it kind of brings me back, to the whole like Menendez brothers case. Like, I am sorry, but
Right.
if he's abusing you, like I can see why he shot him. But the
Yeah.
the weird thing was like it doesn't say anything about like him getting in trouble for that, him serving time, did he run away? I don't really know. Because
Interesting.
there's this huge gap and then it goes on to talk about what he does in the future. I feel like there would be some sort of maybe he did serve time. I don't really know. But
That's
wouldn't
interesting. I would,
yes. They
unless
just
his
kind of brush
dad,
over that.
right, unless his dad, like, still held some sway and they didn't press charges.
I don't know why he wouldn't if he hated the kids so much though too. You know
I
what I
know,
mean?
that's
I don't
just
know.
it. Like, that's
I don't know.
weird.
And it kind of like everything I found about this case kind of brushed over that, which like, okay, that's fine. But at the same time, the victims of, or the families of the other victims, like you think they'd say, okay, well, my family member would have not been harmed had he been in
Had,
prison. Like, so I could see where it
right.
ties in. And I didn't look too much on that. And now I'm like, yeah, maybe I should have. But I did think it was odd. And so I noted that. But yeah. So that's just the background, I guess. And that's something that if someone knows more about that or why, I don't know. Like, did he claim it was self-defense or something? I mean, I don't know how you
Yeah.
could
I
twice,
mean,
but
you,
well, and I don't
right?
know if he lost an eye and an ear, like what was his mental capacity? Like, was he still with it? Was he in a vegetative state? I don't know.
Right. But you would think then someone would had,
Hard to say. So,
that's interesting, yeah.
yeah, because at the age of 36, which wouldn't have been short, I mean, that much after, he had shot his dad,
Yeah.
um, in August of that year, Danny made his way to Gainesville, Florida. So this was right when the new school year was starting. This was down where the University of Florida was. So he moves down there. I don't know why there specifically, but once he's down there, he starts off right away with a big old spree of burglaries in all these off-campus apartments. So this is going to escalate, as you can imagine. So this was in 1990 still. So August 24th of 1990, in the early hours of the morning, Danny broke into an apartment that was off campus. There were 2 college freshmen that lived there. They were attending the University of Florida at the time. It was 18-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell. Like, very young, new, probably
Yeah.
freaking excited. Um, so Danny breaks in. He finds Christina asleep on the couch downstairs. It mentions that he just stared at her for a little bit, didn't do anything, goes upstairs, and he finds Sonia asleep in her room. This is where he tapes her mouth shut, um, and he puts her on her stomach and stabs her to death with is it Ka-bar knife? Is that how you say that?
I don't
Kabar,
know.
it's Ka dash bar. So like I didn't look how to see it. But the only
Maybe it's
reason
just
I mentioned
K-bar?
that specific knife is because it's the same one that they use in the movie Scream. The
Gotcha.
very long one. So I guess it said Kabar, yeah. So anyway, so I think that I mean, I'm only pointing out some of that because of the fact that it ties into the movie and all the things. So um the autopsy on her showed that she died trying to fight him off. So she obviously woke up during that. After he kills her, he goes back downstairs and then he wakes up Christina. He tapes her mouth shut. Um, he binds her wrists behind her and he threatens her with the knife. He sexually assaults her. I should have gave a trigger warning on it. I apologize. There will be more talk of that. So just as a heads up. Um, then he also turns her over and stabs her 5 times in the back as well. So after he killed both of the girls, he goes back upstairs and then he assaults Sonya's body.
Ew.
Yeah. So it gets weird because then he posed both of their bodies in very sexually provocative positions. And if that's not bad enough, then he took a shower before he left. Like he
Oh
just took his
God.
sweet ass time. Yeah. So, um, August 25th of 1990, which is one day later, Danny broke into the apartment of 18-year-old Krista Hoyt. Krista was a chemistry honor student at Santa Fe College, which I think was fairly close to University of Florida. He was able to pry open a sliding glass door with a screwdriver. So people, that is these kind of things. I'm like, yes, that is why I have like a bar on mine and
Yeah,
like
the stick in the door and
yes, totally, totally. So, she wasn't home when he broke in at the time, so he just waited for her in the living room. I don't know if he had been stalking her prior to know that who lived there exactly or what. Um, it didn't really say because this case is older.
right.
So this was during the day too, because she was gone because she comes home at 11 a.m. She opens her front door and was surprised by him because I think it said he was hiding behind the door and he grabbed her and put her in a chokehold.
Oh jeez.
He then taped her mouth shut and bound her wrists together just like he had the others. He sexually assaulted her before he stabbed her in the back as well. Um, okay, and this next detail, it's absolutely horrendous, but the only reason I'm mentioning it in this episode is because it does tie into the Scream film, because I know we don't normally share some of these
Yeah.
horrible things, but he then cut her abdomen open and he cut all the way up to her breastbone. So after leaving this gruesome scene, which is horrific, but it's like if you've seen the Scream movies, that's pretty much how it goes. So I think this is why I could see why Kevin was a little freaked out hearing
Yeah.
about this. Um, so he leaves after doing all that. He returns to this campsite where he had been living. So he was pretty much just homeless, living out in the woods at this campsite. He gets back there. He realizes he can't find his wallet. So he thinks that maybe he left it at her apartment. So he goes back. So upon returning to the crime scene, he decides then to decapitate her and he posed her body in a sitting position at the end of her bed and he placed her head on a shelf facing her body. Later, he claimed that his intent was to add shock value to whoever discovered her. What a
That
sick
is
piece of shit, right?
so gross.
Absolutely disgusting. So naturally at this time, everybody's freaking the F out. Like within,
Right.
2 days apart, 3 horrible murders. And nobody like knew him because he had just moved from there. So it's not like people could even, like say, oh, this one guy, this has always been creeping around. Like he was pretty much
Right.
new and just jumped right in. So it was getting a lot of media attention. Students were terrified. They were all taking precautions. They were changing their daily routines. They were sleeping together in groups. And because this was happening like right at the beginning of the school year, some students even withdrew and
I
went
don't blame
elsewhere.
them.
Yeah,
And that
that's terrifying.
that seems like such a quick escalation that it's like, was he doing stuff prior to this that didn't get noticed?
Well, we'll talk about that too. But I think even before the next thing I'll talk about too, like this had to have been a pattern from way back when he was getting in trouble for robberies and stuff like that. Like it makes you wonder if there were things way back when, like you said.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
of one thing for sure, but even before that, like I feel like you don't just suddenly one day decide you're gonna start brutally
Y-
murdering people.
Yeah.
Like
And
that's extreme.
it is also, I Googled it. It is K-bar.
Oh, it's K-bar. I said
It's K.
K-bar. Of
It's
course.
fine. I mean,
I have two options and I said it the wrong way. Of
it's
course.
fine. But the fact that he stabbed them in the back too makes it
Yes.
such a cowardly thing because, like, you couldn't even look them in the face when you did it. Like, it's such a
One
dehumanizing thing.
Yes. 100%. I think that's yeah, it's just ick. All about everything
I mean,
about
it's
it is
all
ick.
horrible, but yeah, it's like, so you
Let
can do this,
alone
but,
yeah.
like, you have to every time you have to turn them around and stab
Yeah.
them in the back so you don't have to look at them.
And what was it about Krista that made him so mad that he took it to the extreme and then cut her
Yeah.
down the front, you know, and
Yeah.
decapitated her and stuff? Like, wow. Like, that's a lot of anger for someone who
Or
doesn't know
yeah.
her. And I mean, I don't know. It's gross. It's literally a real life horror movie. Like, that's
Yeah,
what,
well,
you
then it
know?
makes you, like, psychologically think, like, okay, is this, like, an anger at his mother for not protecting him from his father? Or, like, you know what I
Oh,
mean? Like, you
yes.
obviously hate women.
Correct. And that's why I was kind of like looking into more of his mom's history with him. And I couldn't find a lot because that was my thought too, was that this somehow ties into getting revenge on his mom, you
Yeah,
know?
because
Like,
that's, like, what Ed Gein's thing
oh
is,
yeah,
like
mommy issues and yeah,
yeah.
totally. So, um, okay, so that was August 24th and 25th. So now August 27th, like I feel like this just seems like a killing spree because
Yeah.
most serial killers like space it out more, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
it's
like he
not
just was like
so yeah,
manic.
it's like a
Yeah.
spree killing.
Yep. So the 27th, same year, 1990, 23-year-old Tracy Pauls, she was living in an apartment with her roommate, Manny Taboda. I'm not even gonna just Manny. He was also 23. So Danny broke into their apartment by prying open their glass sliding door with the same tools that he had used before. So when he enters, he finds Manny asleep in one of the bedrooms. And after a struggle, he ends up killing Manny, which he's the first male victim too that
Yeah.
we are hearing of. So, um, Tracy, she heard the commotion. She gets up to go see what's going on, and when she's going towards Manny's room, she sees Danny. So she runs to her room, locks it, and she attempted to barricade herself in, which sounds. I mean, I was excited when I first read that because I didn't know anything about this case, but he eventually breaks through the door. So once he gets in there, he tapes her mouth shut, he binds her wrists and sexually assaults her before stabbing her 3 times in the back. Um, he posed her body as well, but he left Manny's in the same position in which he had died. So interesting. And so with the exception of Manny, all of the women were petite brunettes with brown eyes, and ironically, they looked just like Danny's mother. So
Mm,
I knew we would get to that here soon, so
yep,
perfect timing, but
yep,
that's about all that really connects him to the mom,
yeah.
but still. So, the police initially had very few leads. They had 2 suspects they looked into. One of them they talked pretty in depth about, and I had it in my notes, and then I took it back out because I was like, it doesn't I mean, he obviously was cleared at some point, but basically, they actually I think it said that he was in jail for, like, 5 months in the meantime, because he had previously been arrested for assaulting his grandmother, and
Ew.
he had some, like, mental illness, and so I don't know what it was that pointed them to him, but he was, like, serving time for it, and then eventually they find out he did not do this, they clear him, and I was happy, though, I did read that he went on to, like, graduate college and, was, like, successful. I was like, "Good." I'm glad something that like that didn't completely ruin his life, so
I
I will
mean,
just
but he
say
had
that
already
about
sexually assaulted his grandma prior?
just well, assaulted, not sexually assaulted.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
still terrible, terrible nonetheless.
Still
Yes.
terrible, but
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that entails, and I don't know what it just said that that was on his record. I'm not sure. Did he hit
Like, it
her?
was
Did he
some
kill her? I don't
right.
know.
I would
Hard to
assume if
say.
he killed her that not but, like, okay, so, like, if he had some mental illness and we had some anger issues and we got that under control
Right.
and made amends, then okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah. So they cleared both of these suspects. So around the same time, Louisiana police, which remember
Mhm.
Danny's from Louisiana, they reached out to the Florida police after they had seen all this was happening. They contacted them because they had an unsolved triple murder in Shreveport that actually had happened November 4th of 1989 when he
Oh.
still lived there. So there were a lot of similarities between those murders and the Florida murders. Um, so the crime in Shreveport, 55-year-old Tom Grissom, his 24-year-old daughter, Julie, and his 8-year-old grandson had been attacked in their home as they were just making dinner. Julie's body had been mutilated and posed, whereas the male victims weren't touched after their death. So detectives from both states worked together and they, pieced together all the similarities. So the posing of the victims, there was tape residue on the victims' bodies. Vinegar apparently had been used to clean the bodies, which I hadn't read
Oh,
until this point. Yeah. They tested body fluids from the crime scene in Shreveport to the ones in Florida, and they found that they were both a match to someone that had type B blood. So I don't know, like 1990, I guess. I was like, I don't know what kind of testing they can do. Like,
yeah. I don't think there was much still. Like DNA
and I can't
testing
remember
wasn't
when CODIS
perfect.
came out. Like, I know we've
Oh,
talked about that, but I don't think he was in there yet. I mean, either way,
no.
they just knew that it matched, well, potentially.
Right.
Because I know type B is like not super common. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that kind of helps, but um, so they're going off that. And then things really come together when a Shreveport resident, her name was Cindy Juracek, she actually called Crime Stoppers and reported that Danny Rowling could possibly be connected to the murders in both cities. She said that 3 months earlier, in August of 1990, she had heard a news report about a string of murders as she was traveling through the Florida Panhandle area. She said that when she heard it, the report made her think of Danny because she had met him at church in Louisiana. Um, she said that he had said very like deeply disturbing things to both her and her husband at the time. They must have been like pretty good friends or maybe just trying to like take him in and help him out or something because she said that he would come over like every night for a while there and hang out with them. Um, and she said one night her husband came in and said he's got to go and he has a problem. And so she asked her husband what he was talking about, what kind of problem. Her husband said that Danny had told him that he likes to stick knives into people. So she said the reason that she hadn't come forward sooner was because she didn't want to believe that Danny could have had anything to do with any of these murders.
When he says creepy things,
Right. Like maybe. And then when this murder happened in the same town with
yeah,
the same knife or weapon that he referred to, like maybe. And it took
maybe.
you that long? Like what?
How about after that we be like, maybe we look at Danny,
Right. Right. Exactly.
and
So,
then
especially with the history of him shooting his dad and all that, like what? I
right.
don't get it.
So
There's a
he
lot of holes here, but yeah.
yeah, that is like, I'm not trying to blame anyone, but also, if you had spoken up sooner, a lot of young people
Oh
would still
yeah.
be alive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 5 to be exact there.
Oh
That's
my
5
god.
people within like 5 days of time.
Because I
Not
feel
even
like,
3 days time, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I guess I don't know how big Shreveport is. I just always think of True
It's pretty
Blood.
big. I
Yeah,
know. I know. Oh,
but it's still like you can't tell me you don't know
I
about
know.
the dad thing. Maybe not, I guess, but I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. If
Okay, it's
if someone creepy
187,000 people.
okay, so it is a lot.
Still.
But
What?
still, like I
Right.
guess maybe you don't know about the attempt on his dad's life. I still don't understand how he's out and about from that, but
Correct. That's what bothered me because I was like, well, maybe they could have shut this shit down a lot sooner if someone did their job.
if
But
someone I barely know says some creepy shit and then a murder comes up, I'd still be like, hey, maybe we just look at him.
yeah. Yeah, he mentioned he likes to stab people.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So she said that he also told her that one day I'm going to leave this town and I'm going to go where the girls are beautiful and I can just lay in the sun and watch beautiful women all day. Okay, like, yeah, that's a creepy statement, but that's not necessarily something that would make me think, oh, he's going to go kill people.
Right.
Paired with the other comment and then having it be in Florida, like, okay.
Yeah.
So she said that once she heard about the Gainesville murders happening, it had haunted her. So she finally contacted the police in November based on her hunch. It was a hunch, apparently, she said. So police responded very quickly to this tip, which, yeah, maybe she should have contacted them sooner. But yeah, so they think that Danny has actually already been arrested. So on September 7th of 1990, he got arrested for a supermarket robbery in Florida there. So he had committed the crime 10 days after the bodies of Manny and Tracy were found. He was held in Marion County Jail, which was about 40 miles from Gainesville. So at this point, they're able to determine that the blood matched his that was found at the crime
All
scene
the
in
scenes.
Louisiana,
Mhm.
and yeah, all of them. So um, they also, are looking at his history now that they know he has this history of robberies. Um, they think that he was responsible for an armed robbery that happened the same day that Krista Hoyt's body was found. Um, that's all that really said about that, but they were able to tie evidence from that to him too. So all the
It is
things. So
busy.
then, oh yeah. So then they also, found where he had been staying. So they go out there, they find all these tools that matched marks left at the murder scene trying to get in. Um, and they found like audio diaries that he had been making about these crimes. And this like area that he was staying in, this wooded area, was like super close to all these campus apartments that were off campus. I mean, so yeah,
Oh
easier
my
to tie into
god.
that. Yeah.
Why the audio
I
diaries?
don't know. Like dumbass? That's weird. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
So
yeah.
just a weird, like, yeah, you kind of want to get caught, it seems like, too.
Yeah.
So they later timed to another crime that had happened on August 5th of 1990, where he had broken into the home of Janet Frake in Sarasota, Florida. He bound and gagged her. He sexually assaulted her, but he did not kill her. So I don't know if she was able to speak on that to testify against him or not. It
Yeah.
didn't really say, but they at least were able to tie him to that. So hopefully that gives her a little justice on that kind of it. But talk about traumatizing to find out later he's responsible for all these murders that she could have potentially been a victim of.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, in November of 1991, he was charged with 5 counts of murder. He said his motive was just that he wanted to be a superstar like Ted Bundy. Because,
Ew.
yeah, disgusting. So, he kind of surprised everyone because he pled guilty to all the charges and they sentenced him to death. So, he later claimed that he had been coerced into committing the murders by a demon named Gemini.
Oh, so we were trying to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
the whole okay.
Yeah, he tried to go that route. I did not look into that any further because I don't
Yeah.
care. But
Yeah.
so while he was in prison serving his time, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and paraphilia. So before he was executed, um, he claimed responsibility for the Shreveport murders as well. So he was executed by lethal injection on October 25th, which I was like, oh, this is right around that time. So we'll celebrate that. Um, October 25th of 2006, after the Supreme Court rejected a last-ditch appeal. So many of his victims' family members were there to witness the execution. The university then did develop an extensive crisis plan after the slayings. Linda Gray, she was the public affairs director at the time. Um, they talked about it a little bit, and they said that this is called the Clery Act. So this requires colleges and universities to report all crimes committed on campus or in its vicinity, and universities have better means of communicating when an attack occurs on campus, better mental health services for students, and the Tarasoff rule, which allows psychiatrists, lawyers, clergies, and others to break confidentiality rules if someone has made a direct threat to themselves or to someone else. So even though Scream isn't directly about the Gainesville Ripper, it is about the fear that Kevin Williamson felt that night, which is
Yeah.
quite fair. So that is where that came from. I was going to talk about too, there's about a million things that you can watch on this. Um, Obviously the Scream movies, which we know though is very
You're right.
loosely based, but First Blood, which is on Prime and Apple TV season 1, episode 3. On Peacock, you can watch Murder Made Me Famous, season 6, episode 6. This one was interesting. The only reason I put this one in here is because we mentioned how he said he had been possessed by this demon. So on Discovery Plus, it's called Scream, The True Story. So this follows the paranormal investigators Steve Shippy and Cindy Kaza, as they tried to investigate the demon that the killer claimed was possessing him.
Oh my
So
God.
I just
Okay.
added that in there because I
Yeah.
thought we all know how those go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is the story of Scream, kind of, but also not because it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And I can see why Kevin was a little scared. I mean, we all know when you watch something, sometimes it's a little scary. You're like, wait, why did I just watch that? Like it was fine in the
Right.
moment and now I regret it. So going to bed. But yeah,
Well,
ta-da. That is it. So, um, that's the spooky story I got for you.
well, thank you. Like I said, I had contemplated covering that one as well, before I found it, but I didn't look too much into it. I had heard of the Gainesville murders
Hmm.
before, but that's not one I'm super, super familiar with.
Yeah.
So,
Because it
but
is
like,
older too, because
yeah, but the
I didn't know.
posing, and I did remember, which I feel like it happens a lot though, but I also remember like the girl who lived with a male roommate and stuff, and that being a
Yeah.
thing, but that is just, I don't, listen, I don't understand a lot of things. Like I said, you try to kill your dad because he was abusive as shit to you. I get it. I can be like,
That
I can
one I can get
understand.
behind. Yeah.
Yeah. But to just randomly go in and do these things, I do not understand. I cannot fathom at all. And it's like,
I
no.
know. I
No.
know. And then it's like that's what makes those movies a little bit scarier because you're like, okay, this is fiction, this is fine, but then it's like, oh, but it's based off something that actually really happened. And we know
Yeah.
that their monsters are real. Like they're
Mhm.
human beings walking around and that do these terrible things. So,
Yes, yes. That's actually, well, I read a lot of horror books, but there have been a few recently that I read that do have like paranormal aspects.
mhm.
But in it, it's like the people who are the scariest part. And then it
Oh,
makes it
yeah,
scarier because it's like there are people who are legitimately like this out there.
absolutely.
And, because I love a good creepy paranormal movie and book and stuff, but, like, when you have that and then you have those added people that are, like, way worse, and you're like, "Okay, the monster I kind of understand, but, like, you people are
It's the
just."
people that are the worst.
Mhm.
Yeah. I know. That's how I feel. It's like, they're the ones that are walking around. Like, not everyone can see ghosts and all that stuff, but like, yeah, they're
Right.
just the people you talk to every day sometimes. You don't
Mhm.
even know. He just sounds like he just like snapped and just went crazy, like new town, new me. I don't know
Yeah.
what that was, but like it.
Well, and in the course of kind of trying to, like, look up to see if he did serve any time for his dad, it
Hmm.
did, like, there was a thing I found that briefly mentioned that he had been married and had a daughter
Hmm. Yeah, I
and
was
got
gonna put that
divorced.
in too, and then I was like,
But
that's a whole nother segue of
but
yeah.
this one that I saw said that the woman who was attacked in Shreveport with her dad and nephew and stuff, that she, I guess, looked similar to his ex-wife, and
Oh,
I think it was, like,
okay,
around,
that
I think it said it was
yeah,
kinda around that. I still saw nothing about his father. I'm like, "How
I
do we
know.
not have something about that?" Seems like an
I
important
know.
detail to have it there.
I know. And then when I saw the thing about the ex, I was like, I don't know if it was like she had written a book or something. I can't remember what it
Mhm.
was. But I was like, oh gosh, that's gonna add a whole nother layer to this. So I was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna leave that out. But if people really want to dive into that, yeah. I don't know. But just
Yeah.
like Ted Bundy, I mean, he also, had a child and all the things.
Yeah.
So
Well he was in prison though once his child was born.
hmm.
But he did have that relationship, but he didn't
Hmm.
bring it home the
Yeah.
way it kind of seems like, because it sounded like I said, it was just a brief snippet in the thing saying that he abused them the way he had been abused as a child,
Yeah.
and so she took off.
Hmm.
So
It's
it's like,
definitely always like a pattern, and it's sad.
mhm,
It's very sad. It's a cycle, but at least she got away, but
yeah,
yeah, who knows what it was that just he snapped and I mean, I can't believe he got away with it even as long as he did. I mean, and to do it back to back, like days like that,
yeah,
and I don't know how far apart the apartments were from each other or what, but like, holy shit. That is intense. And one of the pictures I found, which I think I have a picture I can post of one of the apartment buildings, like it looks like a nice apartment. Like,
mhm.
and you're like, were there other people like in the other could they hear anything? Was it quick? I don't know. But
Right. Well, and then it's just one of those things too that you're like, it's so heartbreaking because like the girl who had barricaded herself in her room and stuff, and you're like, okay, well, how far up was she? Could she not get out a window? And then
right.
cell phones weren't
No.
really, really a thing then. They weren't. as
It was like
prevalent as they are
pagers and
now.
yeah.
And so, she may not have even had like a landline in her room, maybe they only
No.
had a landline in a main area or
Mhm.
something. And at that point he could have cut it. Who knows,
I know. Who knows? Yeah, and it probably all just, like, happened so quick that it was like, "Holy
Well,
shit, this
and you
guy
don't
has a
know
huge
how
knife," and
and you don't know how you're gonna react in those fight or flight moments,
yeah,
and
totally.
it's
Yeah, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. So, not the Heartland, but still crazy.
yes.
So,
So
all of our Scream
um
lovers, check that one out if you didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Now I kinda wanna rewatch Scream. It's been a hot minute since I've
I
watched
love
it.
those. I love those.
Um, but yeah, you guys have a safe Halloween. I hope
Mhm.
everyone has fun. If you have kids, have fun. I don't even know what the weather's supposed to be like. Hopefully it's decent-ish, not
Yeah.
rainy.
Yeah, you never know in Nebraska.
Um,
I remember it snowing some years and,
yeah. You can never tell, but
nope.
we'll be back with another episode at the beginning of November, and it should just be that one week we miss.
Yeah,
We'll let you
so
know if
we'll be
something
back.
comes up, but
Yeah, you're gonna
we
be
appreciate the
busy.
patience and
Yeah,
yeah,
do all your Halloween stuff. Send us pics of costumes if you do,
yeah.
I don't know, I guess
Spooky,
we'll see.
spooky stories.
Yeah.
Always send us. We're open to hear all the things. Send us, as always, like we love to hear from you guys. So you want to remark on the podcast episode? Cool. As long as it's nice. Don't be rude.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, reach out. And as usual, like, rate, review, download, share, follow, all the things help us wherever you can. All of our social medias will be linked in the show note. And until next time, stay Heartland kind.
But Darkland weary.